Send it back to the studio.
Thank you so much, Past Gibbs. Fantastic interview. I really like hearing some of the drama between Furia and Vitality. We'll find out how that plays out later today. As a quick update, G2 did win that series, so they pushed BDS down. And we're going to quickly pause our Rocket League coverage as we once again have a very special guest joining us here in the central broadcast booth. Now, for many of our viewers and for many people watching and attending EWC, interacting with ESL R1 or Rensport is one of the new titles. Is it a game? That's a debate that we've been having on our show, and I have somebody that will be asking at the end of our interview that exact question. It's my pleasure to introduce Nina Braack from Porsche Motorsports, Porsche Esports at Motorsports. Tell me about, first of all, how did Porsche get involved, and what is your role? Because this has to be groundbreaking for both the brand and for everyone here at EWC.
It sure is, but first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Yes, my role is Manager Esports at Porsche Motorsports. This role is a new role since I would say like 2 or 3 years. I'm really happy to be responsible for that topic. We have been involved in esports for quite some time already, but not, I would say, actively as a competitor. But we as Porsche Motorsports said, well, we're not motorsports if we're not competing really actively as a team. And this is what we decided to do 2 years ago. So we founded the team Porsche Quana Esports Racing Team, and since then we have our third factory team, which is very unique, next to our Formula E and LMDH team, and compete now actively as an esports team.
It's phenomenal. I have grown out of motorsport because I fell in love with esports. So I watched a lot of Formula 1, Formula 3, superbikes and motocross when I was growing up. So I'm familiar with the 90s stories and the 2000s, but since then, with the proliferation of esports and obviously development, a brand like Porsche getting involved with R1, is this something you feel like you're groundbreaking, one of the brands? Because there's not many, let's say, mainstream or traditional motorsport companies that are here. So for me, this is very exciting. And do you feel the same?
I do agree a lot. Like, what is really groundbreaking about also our series is that for the first time, actually big OEMs, so like, of course Porsche, but also like BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and so on, have the opportunity to compete against esports teams. So these two worlds have never collided before. So this is happening for the first time. So in our series, it's like BMW competing against Porsche, but also competing against G2, FaZe Clan, and so on. And this is really groundbreaking.
How has that been from your perspective? Because on your side of the sofa, you've got BMW, Porsche, Mercedes, and on my side of the sofa, I have FaZe Clan and G2. Has this been a tough challenge to overcome, educating, let's say, the wider corporate structure at Porsche about what you're doing here and why you're playing against somebody who wears a samurai mask or racing against them?
I think, yeah, it is challenging, but it's a super interesting challenge. Of course, we have the really traditional classic motorsports world. And I would say one of my main tasks is not even like the external communication and explaining what we're doing, but also internal, right? Because we're so used to classic motorsports, but we do see so much potential in esports and also in educating our young drivers, because it's kind of a dual education way that they're now approaching to. So we see a lot of potential, and it's really, really great to see that. And for OEMs, it's just a different kind of motorsports that they can finally do. So they're really thankful for actually esports to be there.
I can say this as well as, again, somebody that I'm not an active viewer or participant. For me, this is hugely exciting because Esports World Cup is the life that I'm living in, and now you're coming here, right? I think when we think about sim racing, we think about Rensport, it's having a bit of a moment. I forget the name of the film right now, but there's a Gerard Bartel film that's just come out about a sim racing driver that won all the competitions, and it's based on a true story. We've got the Aramco Sim Arena that's right here. What does the future look like in your perspective, and do you see this growing more to sort of match what we see in EAFC? You've got all these footballers here with their respective players as well.
Yeah, I think future will be super interesting to see. I think what many people don't know is that sim racing has already quite some history, right? Like there have been games like Gran Turismo, Forza, and so on. So I think a lot of people have even played Need for Speed, right? Like on PC or console, whatever. But now also, like since COVID times, I would say, since then, the development increased a lot.
Can I ask you that, by the way? I'm so happy you mentioned that. One of the gentlemen on my show is an R1 broadcaster, has been involved for several years now, and we had a philosophical debate. I said, Rensport is a game, and he quite staunchly and vehemently told me, it's simulated racing. They're not a game. Where is your perspective, and does the debate even matter?
It is a simulation.
Okay.
point.
Point, okay.
But I think we have to say it's a simulation because it's a form of motorsports, right? So what I think you have to know is that I'm actually talking to our engineers and I'm getting the data of the cars, and based on that data, the simulation is built up.
Yeah.
So these cars, if you drive the Mercedes in the game, is different than you drive a Porsche. Because of course, like the engine is somewhere else, and so on and so on. So we're simulating reality. Because your first the question before was like, how is the future going to look like? I think this is going to be super interesting, because are we going to follow the simulation path, or is there going to be more also a game-focused path where it goes away from only simulating the real motorsports world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had a lot of fun with the young man on my show. I will now say he has won the debate. I concede. However, it did make me chuckle a little bit. They were talking about items that you could get in the game of Rennsport. I went, oh. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for being so generous and free to have the conversation. Let's talk now about EWC. Let's talk about Porsche Motorsport. Doing incredibly well last year at Gamers 8. Struggling a little yesterday. Joshua Rogers normally does a lot better. How do you reflect on the tournament from last year to this year, and specifically how the driver did yesterday?
Yeah, so we're super happy to be able to come back this year. I think, last year was already a blast. Of course, we did incredibly well winning the team championship, which was a huge achievement for the whole team. Therefore, we were super happy coming back, kind of back on common grounds. Amazing to see how EWC has built up here everything. Like, it's insane. I think it's like double the size of last year. Perfectly organized, so we're super happy to be here. It's a great stage also for our drivers. They're always happy to have offline events, right? So seeing all these people again, having the whole industry together. As you said, like sporting-wise, yesterday hasn't been as good as we wanted it to be. We weren't at the pace that we used to have, but we had like little team meeting yesterday, really kind of crossed out last day, and are having our full focus on team championship.
That's sport, isn't it? I mean,
that's
what motorsport is. You have good days, you have bad days, and you kind of strive for all of those wins. Out of interest, just as somebody who's now learning anew, how different is it balancing like the Drivers' Championship versus the Team Championship? And obviously it appears and it feels like the Team Championship is really the meat of things. So how do you balance that internally with your respective drivers?
So for us, team is always focus. I think this is a general Porsche Motorsport focus, that we see team goes always first, because it includes so many factors to be successful. So this is really important for us to point out. Of course, in the end, it's the driver that drives the car, no matter if it's sim racing or Formula E or LMDH. But there are so many engineers, so many people working in the background, and this is one of our strengths also in our team, that the team spirit is so well. Like, all of our drivers live together, they practice every day together. So yeah, this is our strength, so we want to point that out today.
I will tell you this is one of the strangest, most like deja vu interviews I've ever had the chance to do, because it feels like I'm speaking to a Formula One team manager, like one of those pit interviews on a qualifying day. Let's zoom out very quickly. Now, when we look at the rest of our one, obviously I think one of the big names that people will be aware of, Redline Racing, Max Verstappen, him being a degenerate gamer and all of that news that comes out. How do you reflect on the rivalries and actually having some of that, publicity being brought to the sport, to the ecosystem, along with EWC?
Publicity, I think, is the number one thing that we need for our sports, right? I think esports and gaming is so huge, and I would say sim racing is like the smallest bubble, and there's so much potential. So with every publicity that we can get, we're super happy to have that, and of course, competition is a factor for publicity, right? So we love to have good competitors. We love a good competition, and therefore it's also okay to have some rivalries once in a while.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, without rivalries, there's a lot less to get invested in emotionally.
You need stories.
Exactly. Okay, just before I start to let you go, I do want to ask, have you ever played any games? Did you get involved in any other video games? Because here at EWC, there's a significant amount more, let's say, traditional mainstream video games and esports competitions. So what about you and the rest of the team? You've got a lot of support staff here. Are you gamers yourselves? It's
Not
okay to say
really.
no. It's okay to say
Yeah, like what I have to say, like I'm coming from the traditional sports.
Yes.
Like I was a volleyball pro for like 10 years, so this is what I'm kind of bringing to the
Yeah.
table, like all my athlete experience. But I must say, like all of our drivers, like big also in Counter-Strike, Rocket League, they really love all those games. So.
Hand-eye coordination, reaction speed, competitive spirit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transferable skills.
For sure.
Nina, I'm going to say thank you so much. This has been a fantastic interview. I'm a little frustrated that you gave my young man all the ammunition. That there's no gaming element to it at all, but I couldn't see the point. On camera number one, I guess, what message you love to send to the R1 fans and to the Porsche Motorsport fans who are tuning in and watching?
Perfect. So first of all, thank you for having me, and to all of the fans out there, just take a look at the stream that is starting now at 4 p.m. For ESL 1. Just gonna watch some really race action and cheer for Porsche Guana for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. One last thing. If people want to get involved in it, I know that now the game very recently has just become available for pretty much anybody to download and play. How would you recommend someone new that is interested, that thinks that they can transfer their Need for Speed driving skills to R1? How do they get started?
It's basically really with everything, just start. Like start, have fun, experience the game, just get used to it. I mean, start with buying maybe pedals and a wheelbase and a wheel, just put it to your desk, start driving, start to get the experience. But everything that my drivers always say is have fun with what you're doing, and therefore you get the determination to become good.
Start your engines, download the game, and start simulating your races. Nita, thank you so much. I'm going to send you out if you can get some real air conditioning. We're going to carry on. Oh, one last thing. I almost forgot. We have these t-shirts that are only available for our show. We write down all the games, every single guest that joins us for interviews. They sign this, and we'll be giving it away to fans and viewers at home. So before you leave, please sign this. While Nina's doing that, we're going to hear from one of the drivers from Porsche Guana Esports. It is Charlie Collins in the ALJ interview.